Good morning, grade 3s. As you can see, we're in our classroom again. And today I'm going to be reading to you a little story called The Smartest Giants in Town. Right, so let's see what we have here. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. All right, here's George. Get a good look. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart, shiny shoes. Now, I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe, who was sniffling sadly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my neck, said the giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf. Right. Can you see? George and the giraffe are almost the same height. So George is definitely very tall. Cheer up, said George. He took off his stripy tie. It didn't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round the round giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. Thank you, said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. Right, there's our giraffe with George's tie around his neck, and there's George plodding along, looking nice and smart. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sail, said the goat. It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat. There's our goat in his boat, and you can see his sail's blown away. Without a sail, we can't really go anywhere, can we, boys and girls? Cheer up, said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's a boat for a sail for a goat. But look at me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. What's the matter? Asked George. It's our house, squeaked the mother mouse. It's burnt down, and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house. So there's our mice, and you can see down here their house is burnt down. How awful. What do you think George is going to do, boys and girls? Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said. As the mouse and her babies scrambled inside, the shoe made a perfect home for them. Thank you, squeaked the mice. Right, can you see they're living inside George's big shoe? It's perfectly shaped for them. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat is a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." So a fox, he's dropped his sleeping bag in a puddle, so it's all wet. You can't sleep in that. Definitely not. Probably get really sick. "Cheer up," said George. He took off one of his socks. Diamonds, with the diamonds up the side. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said as the fox snuggled into it. "It made a very fine sleeping bag." "Thank you," said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself. "My tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big, squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog. He was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said as he laid it down over the bog and made an excellent path. "Thank you," said the dog. Right, here's our dog, and he's walking across George's belt. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. "My tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But my belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But my trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, "I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more trousers," he decided. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. There's George hopping back to the shop with his pants by his ankles and his polka dot boxers on. Right. But when he got there, it was closed. "Oh no," cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out the top. George took a closer look. "My gown," he yelled. "My dear old gown and sandals." George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the coziest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. And there's George in his gown and his sandals. Comfy, happy, he didn't need all those fancy clothes. Outside in the front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said. "Open it." George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, "Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt is a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and the gown of the kindest giant in town." What do you think you learned from that story, boys and girls? I think that we all need to try to remember to be a little bit more like George and be kind to one another. It doesn't hurt to give things to other people who don't have if it's going to help them more than it helps you. And that's something good to remember during these very difficult times at home. So be kind to moms and dads and brothers and sisters and help where you can. Have a lovely day.